This is Moza's latest sim racing product, the Vision GS wheel. With a futuristic GT-centered design, the Vision GS incorporates a premium build and materials, a rotating touch display, and 72 programmable input signals for a genuinely immersive sim racing experience. But, of course, that all comes at a cost, so let's dive in and check it out. Hey everybody, I'm Jordan with 9 to 5 Toys. We are checking out the Vision GS from Moza today. And big thanks to Moza for sending this over for us to check out. They are not sponsoring this video, so they have no say in what we say about the wheel. Now this is sitting up on top of the wheel offerings from Moza Racing now. This is coming in at $750. Now of course Moza has plenty of more affordable wheels as well, but this is sitting right at the top as their premium product. And first off, let's just give a little overview of the wheel. This is 310 millimeters wide, which also makes it the widest non-round or D-shaped wheel from Moza. And Moza didn't skip on the materials either. The backplate is made of aerospace-grade aluminum alloy with a carbon fiber reinforced composite on the faceplate. It looks and feels the part of a high-quality race car wheel, and it has no noticeable flex. When I've got this mounted up over at my sim rig, if I really try to turn it and flex it a little bit, there's barely anything that moves on here. It feels extremely solid. All over the wheel are buttons and knobs that can be customized from within Moza's Pit House software. Vision GS features 72 different programmable input signals. 2 of those buttons are located on the back, a short distance from where my middle fingers rest. It also comes with an extensive sheet of stickers to customize the buttons with labels once a button layout is set. It's also worth noting on one of Moza's other wheels, the GS V2P, which is what I've been using quite a bit before the Vision GS came in, there are a lot of pre-labeled knobs and buttons on here, which also can be nice. You got everything for engine map and for traction control and ABS, brake bias. On the Vision GS though, it is a completely blank slate, so nothing is labeled on here. You're free to make it exactly however you want. The grips and top of the wheel are wrapped in a hand-stitched microfiber leather. It looks and feels very high quality with a smooth, soft texture. I've been using this both without any gloves and also with there's some motocross gloves that I usually use if my hands are getting sweaty when I'm sim racing. And in both situations, I've never had any issues with gripping the wheel. It does have a really nice soft texture to it, so I have no complaints about the material here on the Vision GS. And with the Vision GS, Moza is going for a very futuristic design. At the core of that, at the center of that, is this touchscreen. It's an interactive display. You can also see it over here on the box. And when you rotate it, there is a processor in here with sensors that will sense that rotation and level out the display. So if you are mid-corner and holding an angle and you need to just check something really quick on the screen, you look down, it will be level, which will make it a lot easier to read. It is a 2.85-inch rotating touchscreen and is completely customizable. The wheel has its own 1.3 GHz quad-core processor. The display is 60 Hz refresh rate. And by default, different presets are saved on the wheel, and that can be cycled by swiping up and down to go between those different templates. And some of those different presets also have different tabs, so you can swipe left or right to get in between those different tabs for different information. And these different dashboards can be completely customized from within the Moza Pit House software. So you can either duplicate an existing dashboard and make some tweaks for how you would like it, or you can start completely from scratch to build your own. Not gonna lie, starting from scratch was pretty overwhelming for me, so I opted to duplicate one of the presets and then just tweak anything that I wanted to make the information that I really needed a little bit easier to see. And across the top is a bank of LED RPM lights. On other wheels, I've found these lights to be more of a gimmick than anything really usable, mainly because you can't really see them that well. They aren't very bright. But thanks to the lights on here, they are quite bright, and when it's flashing red, it's a lot easier to see than with other wheels that I've tried. And I also think because it's in the top of the wheel here, it sits a little bit higher than some other wheels like the Moza ES or even the GS V2P, and so that combination of really bright LEDs and sitting a little bit higher makes it easier for me to see and actually be something that's useful. Once again, it's another situation where this feels like, a genuine race car wheel. Super bright LEDs, easy to see and use there, so kind of a cool feature. And that's just a very basic overview, but now let's go in and actually talk about how it feels in use. And throughout this review, I'll be comparing it quite a bit to the GS V2P, which was the other Moza wheel that I have been using extensively before I started using this one. So first off, one of the first things I noticed is that extra 10mm width on here. I do think that is a nice feature, at least for me. I like having just a little bit wider wheel. You can kind of just feel a little bit more going on at some of the extremes, and so you feel a little bit more fine detail. I also found that the way my hands actually grip it, it's like my hands were more square, even, you know, up and down. On the GS V2P, the way that the wheel is shaped, it kind of feels like they taper in at the bottom, and so my hands, it's kind of an exaggeration, but my hands always felt like they were kind of gripping like the bottom of the wheel, a little bit like this. With the Vision GS though, that is not the case. It feels at least perpendicular, you know, to the horizon, if not almost angled up a little bit. And I do prefer that shape. It feels more comfortable for me. One of my complaints though is that some of the buttons and dials and everything are a little bit further, and so they're a little bit harder to reach. With the GS V2P, you know, things are sitting, you got two buttons right at the top of your thumbs there. The sticks are very easy to hit. You can hit a lot of buttons without really having to move your hand very much. On the Vision GS though, I feel like I have to really contort my hand to hit some of these buttons. It's not a natural thing to get down to there. I have to kind of take my hand off and contort it to get down there. And same with the sticks here, which I do use for looking around when I am playing like Forza Motorsport. It feels like they're just a little bit further away, a little bit harder to reach and actuate than on something like the GS V2P. Now, I do get used to it, and I don't necessarily find myself using those buttons all the time. You know, usually it's for calling up a menu or something like that. But that is something to note. I feel like the buttons were a little bit further out of reach on the Vision GS than on the V2P. Likewise with some of the dials on here, once again, they're just kind of right at your fingertips. For brake bias and ERS is what it has right here. You don't have to move your thumb very far to reach those. But on the Vision GS, it is, once again, another little, you gotta kind of contort your hand a little bit, or at least I do, to get to those dials to make those adjustments. So just another thing in there where ergonomics, things are just a little bit harder to reach on the Vision GS than what I found on this wheel. But that being said, all of the buttons feel very high quality, and there is a very tactile feel and even a sound when you do click it. That's something with this other wheel, the V2P, everything's a little bit more mushy. It's not quite as clear when you actually activate a button, but that is very clear when you are pressing these buttons on the Vision GS. And of course they light up and they are customizable. It comes with a bunch of stickers if you want to, you know, label all these different things, but they're very bright and very easy to see when you're racing as well. My only complaint is that when they're sitting in the housing, they're just a little bit loose, and this is very nitpicky of me, but when Forza Motorsport starts up, inevitably with Moza wheels, they start shaking for a few seconds. And I can hear all of those buttons just kind of rattling and shaking. I don't notice that when I am actually racing. You know, it's not like I'm making big movements where you can really hear that, but it's just something that kind of bugs me every time the game starts up. All right, and moving on to talk about the paddles. Once again, coming from the GS V2P, the Vision GS paddles, they're quite a bit quieter, but they also don't feel quite as snappy. And that's by design. These are intended to be a quieter paddle, and so they have been silenced a little bit. Moza describes the shift levers as equipped with pre-installed silencer pads for a noise-free shifting experience. Personally, I'm not sure that I prefer this quieter shifting experience over what you find on the G2P. I kind of like the snappier feel. It almost feels like these are a little bit stronger. It's just a little bit more secure or a little more precise when you do actually pull the button. Of course, it is quite a bit louder, and so there are some situations where you aren't going to want a really loud wheel with loud, snappy paddles, but personally, I prefer the feel of the paddles on the G2P. And talking about the screen in use, you know, it is a cool feature to have any customizable information right there at the center of your wheel. Most of the games I play, it's not necessarily necessary. HUDs in ACC and in Forza Motorsport both display all the information that you need at any given time anywhere around your screen. But I'm sure in other softwares and for immersion, like this can be a really fun feature to have on here. It also, of course, rotates, but you've probably noticed in some of the playback that it's a little delayed. If you do a bunch of quick movements, it's like it can't quite keep up. but there aren't many situations where you're going to be making a bunch of really quick adjustments and staring at the screen on the wheel. You'll probably be, mid-corner correcting a slide, and so you wouldn't actually be staring at the display and trying to get any information from it. It's more when you are holding an angle through a corner or going down a straight that you would really be using that. So overall, wrapping up here, sim racing can be a very expensive hobby. But for those who have the means and the desire to use high quality products, there are incredible pieces of hardware out there, like this, the Moza Vision GS wheel. And while $750 is a lot to pay for a wheel, Moza has kept the price pretty reasonable. Considering that the Fanatec BMW M4 GT3 wheel is priced at $1,500, the Vision GS could be much more expensive if a different brand offered it. Moza has created plenty of great products that are entry level for getting into sim racing and figuring out if you like it and kind of growing within the brand. But, having something like this, kind of their top tier wheel, it's really cool to see what kind of premium offerings they can offer as well. Overall, I've been absolutely loving my time with this wheel. Like I said, there are a few nitpicky ergonomic things, but the size and the feel of it itself make up for those for me. So if it's something you're interested in, or if you want to check out any of Moza's other products, of course we will have links down in the description. And that's going to do it for this review of the Moza Vision GS wheel. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments below. And if you're looking for some other videos to watch, I'll link to a review of the R16 wheelbase we're using, as well as our most recent video. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up so others can find it easier, and consider subscribing. This is Jordan with 9to5 Toys.